A lot has been said about Jackson State's attendance this year. Okay, we saw that the Clarion Ledger did a hit piece after the homecoming game, and they did a comparison uh, of Jackson State's attendance this year to that of the Deion Sanders era. Then after Jackson State's last home game, there was a lot of talk about attendance and everything like that. Even though for that week we still led. Okay, we still we still led in attendance, but it was sub 30,000. And so a lot of people been talking about attendance. Okay, so something was said on Twitter, and my OG, okay, was brought up. Okay, and y'all know I'm always blessed to have my OG here with me. Okay, God has really blessed me uh, with having somebody like him coming to my life for real. Okay, so I'm gonna allow the OG to bless y'all as well. Okay, and we're gonna get into this. Okay, we're gonna talk about HBCU football attendance. Okay, but before we do, make sure y'all hit that subscribe button. I am your homeboy first, and this is the realest, most entertaining show in the game. Put it on some again. Hit that subscribe button. Share. Hit that like button as well now. Okay. Put all your people on. Make sure you follow me over there on Instagram. Trying to reach 40,000 followers before the end of this year, and you can help me make that happen. Okay. But OG, before I let the people hear from you, let me make sure I set this up correctly so they kind of know exactly what was being discussed. Okay. You had a king on Twitter. He tweeted out something about watching the LSU versus Alabama game. Okay. And this comes from a king by the name of Trey Day. Shout out to that king. He said, so I watched the LSU versus Alabama game. It was packed. And I can't wrap my head around why my HBCU alums can't do the same. Okay. And that led to all kind of comments about this. Okay. But one set of comments ended up bringing up my OG C. Liegh McInnis. Okay. And that was realest one, Sonic Boom C98, okay, who wanted to hear from the OG on this, okay? And this was how the conversation went down and how OG was brought into this, okay? You had some account that said it's alumni and students talking about at the big PWIs. He said, I attend UGA and we have 92,000 students and alumni fill our stadiums every Saturday. At HBCUs, most games are branded to just hear the bands play at halftime. Or it is a fashion show, and people don't really display school spirit at all. Now, the realest one, Sonic Boom C98, felt some type of way about that. And he said they're branded this way. And then Sneaker King came back. He said, yes, halftime is the real game, quote unquote. Halftime is the real game rhetoric, okay? And so Sonic Boom was like, okay, are we branding it that way, or is that one basically the stereotypes attached to HBCUs? Okay, and then he said at first realist, at first underscore realist. Make sure you follow me over there on Twitter. Can we ask the OG to speak on this because I have my ideas on where this mentality came from. Okay. So, as I said before, Sonic Boom C98 is one of the realest ones. He is a channel member. Y'all can join him by hitting that join button. Okay. And since he asked, my OG came through for me. Okay. And we gonna deliver. So, OG, can you give us some of your wisdom on this topic?
First of all, of course, we got to give a shout out to Sonny Boone, C98. You know, he's always online supporting Jackson State and HBCU, so he's always strong. And unlike most people, he's not strong and wrong. He's just strong, right? And of course, you know, I got to always just thank you for everything you're doing, brother. First, you know, it's a lot of people talk a good game, but a lot of people don't walk a good game. And also WB Du Bois said that we need to learn to fight for our rights in season and out of season. And what he's saying is that sometimes it is fashionable to fight for black rights, and sometimes it's not fashionable to fight for black rights. And what I like about you, and I've told you this before, you fight for our rights whether it's fashionable or not. Because sometimes folks like to say it ain't time for all that, or you don't need to be that loud. And that's why our movement always stops and starts, because we're always allowing other people to define for us when we should and shouldn't be fighting. And so I appreciate you living that W.E.B. Du Bois quote that we need to fight for our rights in season and out of season. Now let's get to this particular topic.
Okay.
The major problem with this topic is that we are never comparing apples to apples. We are always comparing apples to damn cucumbers. And at some point, we need to stop comparing apples to cucumbers and compare apples to apples. And by the way, if y'all hadn't guessed, the black folks are the apples and, you know, the mother folks are the cucumbers. But we'll roll on with that. Let's move on with that. So if you look at just FCS, and let me do this also, because a lot of times I see people say, well, we're going to discuss HBCU football and then discuss FCS football. HBCU football is FCS football.
Right.
That's the number one thing that needs to be understood. So when you are discussing HBCU football, you are discussing FCS football. And here's why that's important. When we are recruiting athletes to HBCUs, the white FCS schools frame it that way as well. They're like, well, you can play FCS, we still Division I, or you could go play HBCU, making our own athletes think that HBCU is somehow not FCS, somehow not Division I. No, HBCU is FCS, HBCU is Division I. Yeah. So to play football or basketball or baseball at an or soccer or golf or bowling at an HBCU school is the player at an FCS school, is the player at a Division I school. That's number one. Number two, if you go back to 1978, that's 45 years. HBCUs have led in attendance 29 of the 45 years. Now, if my math is right, that means FCS schools have only led 16 times. Oh, but wait a minute. There's an extra cucumber in the mix. Because of those 16 times, if I'm not mistaken, Appalachian State has led 10 times. They are no longer an FCS school. So technically, FCS schools, pure FCS schools, have only led 6 times of the 45 years. Of that, now, let's get a little bragging rights for a second. Of those 45 years, of the 29, Jackson State has led it 14 times. Followed by Southern has led it 5, Grambling 3, Fairmead 2, Alcorn 2, and I got to give my numbers on North Carolina, A&T, and Tennessee State. But you know the 5 HBCUs that have led it the most over the 45-year period again has been Jackson State has led it 14 times, Southern has led it 5, Grambling 3, Fairmead 2, Alcorn 2, and I may be off on Fairmead. Fairmead may either be 2 or 3.
Hello, right? Did Prime coach us for 14 years?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay, my bad. Okay.
Yeah. And again, that's my issue. And of course, we discussed that before, that here we have led in 14 years, and yet you had, and the problem I had, that you had both black and white people lying. Like the first time Jackson State had 50,000 people was when they had Coach Sanders. And clearly 14 years, going back to 78, we've always had. So the numbers, just the numbers themselves. Now, when you equate that, when you look at the numbers and what's called the blue bloods of HBCU football.
Okay.
Everybody except, say, Tuskegee and Morehouse, their attendance falls in line with the quote HBCU football blue bloods. And that is the teams that have the most victories or the highest winning percentages tend to have the highest averages. So I just go through the schools, right, quickly, who have the most wins, and then we'll do the top 10 HBCUs with the most wins, and then the winning percentages.
Okay.
The teams with the schools with the most wins, Tuskegee, Grambling, Southern, Hampton, Tennessee State, FAMU, South Carolina State, North Carolina A&T, Howard, Bethune-Cookman. Those are the top 5 in victories and in winning percentages, with Jackson State being right after them. So what's interesting is that only 10 HBCUs have more victories than Jackson State. But what's interesting is all of the schools that have more victories than Jackson State have been playing longer than Jackson State. So there's not an HBCU that's been playing as long as, so all the schools that I mentioned ahead of Jackson State, they've been playing football longer than Jackson State. Mm-hmm. All of the schools that have been playing football at the same time at Jackson State, none of them have more victories than us. And again, only 5 schools have a higher winning percentage than us. Now, saying that to say those schools that I mentioned, only Tuskegee and Hampton have not dominated over the past 45 years in attendance. Now, Tuskegee, because they're a relatively small school, you also have to throw Morehouse in there because Morehouse, for their size, right? Morehouse is Division II. When you drop down to Division II, Morehouse has been pretty comparable in attendance. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, either last year or year before last year, Morehouse was in the top 2, if not leading in Division. I know they were top 5, if not leading in Division II. So again, all of this goes to show that we do attend our games on the same level, if not, no, actually we attend our games better than the white schools our size. And we attend our games better than the schools our size when their athletic budgets are $10 million or so more than ours. Right? People love to compare Jackson State and North Dakota State. I think they got like a $10 million advantage in their athletic budget, if not more. So when you are comparing, make sure it's apples to apples and not apples to cucumbers. You should never, why is it that they never compare North Dakota State to Alabama, but they want to compare Jackson State to Alabama? Why? Because they know in the comparisons, the HBCUs have been doing better, and we've been doing better with one hand tied behind our back. I would argue if we had the same money as Montana and North Dakota State, let's talk about the powerhouse FCS school. Okay. If we had the same money, because we already got the same historical winning. Last time I checked, how many Hall of Famers does North Dakota State have? How many Hall of Famers does Montana State have? Jackson State has over 100 NFL draftees. How many draftees does North Dakota State have? How many draftees does Montana have? Again, a lot of people from North Dakota State and Montana, they're going to come after me because they think I'm coming after them. No, I'm not coming after them. I'm the first one to say, people saying, well, why don't North Dakota State and Montana go up? Why? That would be stupid to go up. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being a big fish in a small pond when it's profitable. Yes. See, that's the thing about it. North Dakota State and Montana, they realize it's profitable for us to be the big fish in a small pond. And if you can be profitable doing what you're doing, see, only black people are the only people who will give up our money simply because white folks said that ain't good enough. North Dakota State and Montana ain't giving up their money to go chase an FBS dream. So why are HBCUs always giving up our money to get? Black people would rather be patted on the back by white folks than make money. And what I tell people, when you look at the FCS playoffs versus the Celebration Bowl, we're gonna come back to the band thing, but I want because this is important about how we create our system and how we create our programs. Okay. FCS playoffs, Celebration Bowl. You have to pay to play in the FCS playoffs. You get a check from the Celebration Bowl. Last time I checked, Brother First, getting money is a lot smarter than giving money. Now, I don't know if my math is not like everybody else's math. We have something in the Celebration Bowl. It's profitable. Our people love it. So we should stop waiting on validation from white folks and build our systems, support ourselves. Now, let's go back to this whole, so why is all that important? Well, all that is important to let you know that our powerhouse schools, football programs, have had good attendance. So there have been 3 types of HBCUs in this conversation. 3 types. The HBCUs that have been both simultaneously banned in football schools. That is, the HBCUs who've always had great band and great football programs.
Mm-hmm.
The HBCUs that had just great band programs.
Mm-hmm.
And the HBCUs that have been neither.
Okay.
All right? The Blue Bloods are the ones that I just named. They have always had great band and football programs. Tuskegee, Grambling, Southern, Hampton, Tennessee State, Fairview, South Carolina State, North Carolina A&T, Howard, Bethune-Cookman, Jackson State, Alcorn. Must have had Alcorn in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else has kind of always flip-flopped between great band program and now if you go back, and I need to do something, if you go back to say the 1920s, mm-hmm. There are a few other schools you can add in. Central, if you and then coming into the 50s, Central had a great football program through the 1950s and what have you. And they just kind of fell off for a lot of different reasons. Mostly because of where they're located. Integration really got them in a way. Cause so we always forget. Because I remember when Valley played Central earlier this year, and then there was some other things, and people are like, no. If you go back and check Central's record, Central always had reputable programs. So what happened was that as integration started taking players from HBCUs, mm-hmm. right? And so by going into the mid-90s is when you really started seeing the big drop-off in talent. And people don't realize that football talent kind of remained pretty solid in HBCUs. We forget Steve McNair played into the 2000 NFL. So Steve McNair is technically a 90s player. Mm-hmm. I haven't, and let me make this point to kind of tie it all in. You know, I haven't watched the NFL since Steve McNair retired. Mm. Yeah, and the reason being, like a lot of people stop with Kaepernick, right? And I think that people, when they right to stop, I stopped with Steve McNair. So to show you how strong HBCU programs were through the 90s. Through the 90s, brother, first, I didn't have to root for the black quarterback. Because I had the luxury, and I want to be clear, I had the luxury of rooting for the black college quarterback. Mm-hmm. See, my childhood through the 70s and 80s and then into the 90s becoming an adult, there was always at least one black college quarterback for whom I could root.
Okay.
It was only after Steve McNair that we couldn't find. And the last, I think, HBCU quarterback that was really given was the brother Tavares Jackson. At Alabama State. He was the really last HBCU quarterback that was given a shot. He played for the Vikings. And it salute to that young king because he died early, unfortunately, not long after his NFL career. And he just didn't, career, sometimes your career just don't work out. And that's no dig. That's no, hey, it's just, but so I'm saying that to say that Alcorn, they was a Steve McNair football team. They wasn't a band team. Mm-hmm. And so this, how can it be that we were band schools when we were readily putting players into the NFL going into the 90s? See the numbers. Now, what happens is if your football program falls off, then you have the fallback. Mm-hmm. So Jackson State was never technically a band school, right? The only time the band became more popular than the football team was after the Comedy years, when we hastily fired Comedy without a plan. I'm not saying he should or shouldn't have been. There was some extenuating circumstances. I hated to see him go. Let me be clear. I hated to see him go, but there was some extenuating circumstances. But even with those extenuating circumstances, you need to have a plan. We didn't have a plan. It is what it is. We fired Comedy, so we went through 7 to 10 years of downtime.
Yeah.
And what you saw happen in that 7 to 10 years of downtime is that the band became more popular because it was better than a football product. But that's 7 of our illustrious 50, 60 years of football.
Mm-hmm.
So again, the numbers just don't bear out. Now, let's deal with the other thing when people say a fashion show.
Mm-hmm.
Black people just fly than everybody else. Don't be mad because y'all ain't fly. I mean, I was trying to put it a different way, brother. First, I was trying to make it educated. But don't be mad at me because your potato salad bland. Don't be mad at me because don't nobody want to eat your vegetables. Our vegetables are seasoned, crispy, still got the nutrients, and y'all vegetables taste like boiled water. That ain't my fault. So you have to understand, brother, first, when they say here's what they don't understand. White people in America don't know how to walk, talk, or dress. They don't know how to walk, talk, or dress until black children between the ages of 15 and 25 tell them and show them how to do so. All American culture is African American culture that has been co-opted and profited by white folks. So yes, if black football games, if HBCU football games is a fashion show, that means all of America is a fashion show. Because we are the culture. All white music takes its cue from black music. Even Western, country music. Now, country and Western, I give them country where we had the country and Western. That's their thing. That's their, I'm not going to, but even that is a bit derivative of the blues.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole, it's a fashion show. That's really you know what that is? That's the white person's dig just basically at how we do things. It's the dig at the African aesthetic. See,
and I don't know if that whoever said that is white or black. They only got a handful of followers. It might be a bot. I don't even know.
No, the thing about it is they don't have to be. No, here's the thing. They don't have to be white. It could be a black person who has embraced the Eurocentric way of life.
Oh, I call them black white supremacists. So
there you go.
It might be one of them.
So it is a question of, so because I'm stylish, look what they're saying. Because you're stylish, you don't care about the football game. But see, that's what they say. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you, brother. First, I was never a flashy. I was a mediocre multi-sport athlete. Emphasis on the mediocre. Because I was a mediocre multi-sport athlete, I couldn't be flashy. I didn't have enough talent to be flashy. Mm-hmm. Now, philosophically, I don't like celebrations. I don't like celebrations after first downs. I don't like celebrations after 3-point shots. I don't like celebrations after touchdowns. Mm-hmm. To me, you just doing your job. Why are you celebrating doing your job? However, I also understand if you don't like the flashiness, you can't just stop it. And that's the problem. See, when white people or self-hating black people complain about the fashion or flashiness of black people, what they are really complaining about, what they're really saying is, I can't believe you Negroes love yourself. I can't believe that you Negroes at Jackson State love yourselves enough to pack y'all stadium. I can't believe that you Negroes at these other HBCUs love yourself. We are not supposed to love ourselves. And the fact that black people demonstrate love for ourselves by being, you probably can't see it. I love this page to print. I'm sorry, this is who I am. I came up in that era, baby. I got a pair of Stacey Adams over there waiting to be put up. This is who and what it is. But when I'm at the game, I'm gonna look. I have a poem that says, "I'm gonna pull myself up by my Stacey Adams and look good doing it." Right? Because we both pull ourselves up by bootstraps. I ain't got no bootstraps, but I got some Stacey Adams, and I'm gonna pull myself up and hopefully pull all other black people up. It is the Afrocentric way of life to acknowledge the aesthetics. You know why? Because when you're acknowledging the aesthetics or the beauty of life, you're really acknowledging God. In fact, you are not giving proper credit to the Creator by not acknowledging the beauty of life. And that is what black people do. And what people hate is that we acknowledge the beauty of ourselves and the beauty of life in everything that we do. So yes, we fly at the game, but you know what? We fly at the game, and there's more of us there at our game than it is at the other white FCS schools. So you know what that means, brother? First, that means that they dressing down, they dressing raggedy, and they still not going to their games. I stop there and see what you
get. No, OG. You know, we have these talks off camera, whether it be at the game, we met for dinner, lunch, and we talk about this stuff. We talk about this kind of stuff on the phone. But when Sonic C98 asked me that question about can we get the OG to speak on it? It was a no-brainer to get you on here, to give us some wisdom on it, because I see these white supremacists talking points all around this state. In the business that I'm in now, I travel around this state, teaching our young people, helping teachers, all that kind of stuff. And it's unnerving, it's frustrating, it's enraging when I hear white supremacist talking points coming from black people. And what really upsets me is when adults who hear kids say these things, and what the kids are doing is echoing some other adult, okay? But I just feel like it's on us that know better to push back and correct the record. Because when we let our young people believe this stuff, they start being self-hating, like you said. So if you say, okay, LSU and Alabama packed, and Jackson State versus, I don't know, I ain't gonna use Alabama State, because again, we were undercounted. I was sitting.
No.
Me and you eyeballed 45.
Here's the thing. You can. You know what?
Okay.
Let's go back to 2021.
Okay.
2021, Alabama, the flagship of FBS football.
Mm-hmm.
Alabama was in Oxford playing Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
On the same day, Alabama State was at Jackson State's homecoming.
Mm-hmm.
We outnumbered them by 4,000.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a larger attendance than the number one football program in the country. But nobody talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll say, well, that was because you had Coach Sanders, but then we just gave you the numbers. What about the 14 years before Coach Sanders?
Well, it's like, okay, they thought whatever that number was, let's say that number was 55,000, 60,000. They gave Coach Prime credit for like all of that.
Right.
Like Jackson State did not have a floor already. Like it's kind of like what I was trying to tell folks when he went to Colorado. I said, okay, Jackson State is a blue blood HBCU program that had a floor already. Okay.
Yep.
They just needed, somebody to come in and spark that thing. Okay. Colorado, even though they have a national championship back, I think maybe early 90s. I'm just going to cover myself, say early 90s. But they are not a blue blood. They're not Alabama. They're not Georgia. They're not USC. They're not Notre Dame. They're not like that. Okay. So when he came to Jackson State, there was a floor already there. Yeah. Now, of course, you had some of the celebrity worshipers that came on through because he was at the party. And we understand that. But when Alcorn and Jackson State meet up, in this Soul Bowl that's coming up, come on now. We already know what it's gonna be like. Yep. We already know. But that last team we played at home, Texas Southern. Okay?
Right.
So we played Texas Southern, and we have somewhere between 20 and 25,000 people in attendance. Okay. But people bring that up without bringing up the fact that, hold on now, what's Jackson State's enrollment?
Yeah, that's exactly.
The fact that a school with that enrollment got 25,000 people up in here is still an accomplishment.
Yep.
But so we're not comparing the same thing. It's like our people do this a lot. They compare poor black people to middle class whites.
Yep.
And say they do these things, they do these things. They don't compare poor black people to poor white people in West Virginia.
Right.
They compare poor black people to white people that living in Madison or something like that.
Right.
You're comparing apples and apples. Stop
right.
it.
Right.
You know, stop that. Another thing, OG, I really don't think a lot of our people know the demographics of this country.
Right.
I know that from my decade in the classroom and now going around the state, one of these young men I was talking to, I said, what percentage of America you think black? That young man told me 57%. Now he's living in a county that's 80% black. Right. So it's kind of like you said, told me before, too many of our people live in this little bubble.
They live in a bubble. Yep.
Even though they have these, but even in that, they're still in their bubble. Yep. So they're just seeing black. They're only watching sports, and we're overrepresented in that. Okay, we make up 13% of the population, people.
Yep.
In the United States of America. Then sometimes they say 12. So I'm being nice by saying 13, okay?
Yep.
So when you look at the NBA and you see 80% of the league brothers out there, and you look at the NFL and see 70-75% brothers out there, that ain't what America look like.
Right.
So when you look at the Alabama versus LSU game, and you expecting Jackson State to have the same amount of people in the vet, when the vet wasn't even built with the intention of our fan base, it was built for them bigger white schools in the state.
And not only that, it was originally built between 22 and 25,000.
Yeah, and like you said, they added to that.
So that lets you know that even comparing apples to apples, that was a time when Ole Miss and Mississippi State wouldn't even dare to compare themselves to the major football programs.
And you could argue that even today they can't. Because just like Deion Sanders used us as a stepping stone, people use those two programs.
Right.
Mississippi State and Ole Miss are used as stepping stones.
Right.
Look at Dan Mullen.
Right.
Dan Mullen had risen to number one in the country when Dak Prescott was there.
Yep.
It still wasn't good enough for him. He went to Florida.
Yep.
Okay. We see this. Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin, every year is rumors that he about to go somewhere else that's bigger. You know,
right.
So like we're not comparing, like you said, apples to apples. And it's so detrimental to us when you do that, because then it becomes black folks are just inferior. What black folks do is inferior. Black folks make it a fashion show. But see, I went to a PWI for undergrad as well, and the white frat boys would come to the game with suits on, a blue blazer, khakis, and a tie. The girls out of Tri-Deltas, I don't know what they are. They would come and their dresses and their makeup and all that kind of stuff done. There's a fashion show for them too. They wasn't really caring about the game. They were drunk and they were doing their little chants. And if we started getting blown out, they were leaving and going to the front house for a kegger.
There you go.
That's what they were doing. So we got to start acting like white folks do everything right. And black people do everything wrong.
Right.
And to be better, we got to be more like them. Stop it.
And what happens is PWIs get the benefit of the white people in their state who didn't go to college are going to gravitate to supporting one of the white schools.
Yes.
Whereas, unfortunately for us, a lot of the black people in our state, unless they happen to live around these black colleges, they will gravitate toward. Now, here's something else. Here's another interesting facet. And I'm just going to lay it out there. I'm not going to call it, because I don't want to say that you, just because you like something white or it's like something that is self-hating. But here's something, and I just recently discovered this because I didn't know I was an anomaly. And I want to be clear. I found out I am an anomaly in this. I did not know that even some HBCU folks, they have what they call their black school and their white school.
Yep.
I didn't know that. I'm in the anomaly. I am one of the only HBCU people that I know that I have never watched PWI sports in my life. My father didn't watch PWI sports. My grandfather didn't watch PWI sports. I am a third generation baseball man. Mm-hmm. My grandfather barnstormed with the Negro Leagues. He didn't play in the Negro Leagues, but he barnstormed. He participated in Negro League barnstorming games. Mm-hmm. My father was a college pitching prospect. Unfortunately for both of them, I didn't have that talent. I was only able to earn one scholarship, and I turned that down to try to go walk on at Jackson State and found out I didn't have college talent. So, but I'm saying all that to say, I assume because my father didn't watch PWI sports, I thought that everybody else did. I was surprised that there are HBCU grads who watch both PWI and first, I'm 54 years old. I probably watched 5 in my entire life, 5 PWI games in my entire life. When I say 5 PWI games, that is both teams were PWIs. Now, I've watched a lot of games with HBCU. March Madness, when the black school go home after the first weekend, I stopped watching. Mm-hmm. So what PWIs get the benefit of, they have a lot more fans who didn't attend their school to watch their games. Mm-hmm. So what with HBCUs, we only have our graduates and people in the locale of the school, right? Somebody's nephew went to the school or somebody's cousin. Mm-hmm. And so that's the other aspect, that PWIs have a lot more what's called casual fans. And HBCUs have always struggled to get casual fans.
Well, I think that's part of accessibility as well. Yep. Like now in the streaming era, being able to go on YouTube and see a Valley game whenever you want. Being able to watch right before we started filming, I was watching Jackson State basketball on ESPN Plus. Mm-hmm. Whereas when I'm growing up, if BET wasn't showing it, ABC wasn't showing it, ESPN wasn't showing it, NBC was showing Notre Dame. You knew that you can go there for Notre Dame. They weren't showing it.
It was so rare. It was so rare that one of I used to say it was a childhood memory, but when people gave me the date, I was in maybe middle school, high school. I just don't remember being that old. But one of my rare childhood football memories, and Grambling leads the series over Jackson State. So, Grambling versus Jackson State, Grambling leads the series, and it's not even close. But one of my rare memories is watching Jackson State beat Grambling on ABC. And the reason I remember it, because we was on offense, getting ready, you take the final snaps to run down the clock. And I remember it because the Jackson State offensive line broke the huddle and high steps, and it was flags everywhere. Like, they were like, no, you ain't gonna do that on ABC. You ain't gonna clown like that. But I remember it because it was so rare to see an HBCU game. And I'm older than cable. Like, it was these many, brother. First, it was these many stations, right? And so think about, like you said, accessibility.
And I think,
go ahead.
One of those stations would show Grambling versus Southern Premier League.
NBC had the contract for the long. NBC had the contract for, and then again, accessibility. Then they moved it to their streaming service. So again, you're right. It's when we remember, and that's going through the 90s. So the question is, if going through the 90s, when HBCUs were regularly sending players to the pros, why did we have such limited access? Well, it was because they were purposely trying to make sure that we move the best talent from HBCUs to PWIs. And the sad thing about it is you have so many African Americans who attend PWIs who don't know this history and don't know the greatness of HBCU. And here's the problem: accessibility. So you'll have somebody like Roland Martin, who will tell this lie. When I say tell this lie, a lie is also not telling all of the facts. See, that's a lie too. So Roland Martin loves to tell this lie. And I want to be clear, a lie is not telling all the facts. Roland Martin loves to say, he loves this quote. There are 2.1 million African Americans at PWIs, only 200,000 at HBCUs.
Mm-hmm.
That's true, but let me tell you why that's also a lie. Because what he's doing is trying to say that PWIs are better than HBCUs. But here's the problem with that. If there's, well, we know there's 2.1 million African Americans at HBCUs, only 200,000. Well, that's true, but can you answer this question for me, brother, first? With all those African Americans at PWIs, how come HBCUs still produce 80% of black judges, 50% of black lawyers, 50% of black doctors, 20% of black STEM workers? And also, did you know that HBCUs, and this was a Forbes study, so this is a white folks study, that HBCUs, 2-to-1 ratio, we move our students from the lower economic class to the middle economic class at a 2-to-1 ratio. That is, if you have a black child who comes from the lower economic class, and one goes to a PWI, one goes to an HBCU, the ones who attend HBCUs are moved into the middle, after they graduate and get jobs, they are moved into the middle class economic status at a 2-to-1 ratio. So my question to Roland Martin is, what's so great about the 2.1 million black people at PWIs when HBCUs, based on the numbers, are doing a better job preparing them? See, that's the kind of lie that gets perpetuated because you have these black folks at PWIs who believe that simply because something is white is better, and they don't give you all the numbers. And then you have these same people tweet these things or post these things without the historical context, and that white supremacist mentality perpetuates it, and people still continue to believe that if it's white, it's better, when the facts clearly show, the facts show that HBCUs, based on preparing people for the workforce, based on moving people economically, and based on attendance numbers, HBCUs are clearly on par, if not better. There are 11 HBCUs that are research 2. So there's research 1 and research 2. So there are 11. Jackson State is one of the 11 HBCUs that are research 2. That means that there are people sending their children to white schools, to PWIs, because they think PWI is better, and those PWIs are not even research 2 level schools. Can
you explain that to some of the real ones out there that might not understand that academic jargon when you say research 1 and research 2?
Research 1 and research 2 essentially means how much research money and how much actual research in science, what's called STEM, right? Science, technology,
engineering,
math. Thank you. How much research and productivity. And we're saying that there are 11 HBCUs that are generating more research dollars and more research products than many of the PWIs to which you're sending your school. So when you ask yourself, when you are researching at PWI, ask them or research to see, is this PWI research 1 or research level 2? And you will be surprised which of those white schools are not research 1 and research 2, and there are 11. In fact, Jackson State is the second oldest. The first 3 HBCUs to achieve R2 status was Howard, Jackson State, North Carolina A&T. Right? And I don't want to get the name of it because I'll leave out some, but I know that it's Howard, Jackson State, North Carolina State, FAMU, Morehouse. See, that's why I don't want Southern. Southern, I think, Southern moved it from 10 to 11. So that's 6 of them, and I apologize to the 5. And if you guys remember the 5, I can't remember the other 5 off the top of my head, please put it in the chat and charge that to my head and not my heart. Because I you know what, I actually hate that phrase when people say charge it to my head and not my heart. But it's not in malice that I don't want to remember those other 5 because it's important that we do. So yeah, so brother, first, there's somebody gonna send their child to a white school and say, "Well, I send my child to this school because it's better," and they don't generate the research dollars and productivity that Jackson State does. Before we go, let me give you this last stat. Overall FCS attendance for the past from 2012 to 2022.
Mm-hmm.
5 of the top 10 are HBCUs. And 15 of the top 60 are HBCUs. I'm going to run them down in the order. So these are the top 15 schools. So the 5 that are in the top 5 of FCS attendance for the past 10 years, Jackson State, Southern, Fairview, North Carolina A&T, and Alabama State. Those 5 schools are in the top 10. And then the other 10 that's rounding out the top 60, Alcorn, South Carolina State, Tennessee State, Grambling, Norfolk State, Alabama A&M, Prairie View A&M, North Carolina Central University, Bethune-Cookman, and Texas Southern. These 15 schools have been top 60 attendance, and 5 of them have been top 10 attendance in the past 10 years. And we gave you the numbers of all time. So we need to just stop this lying about what HBCUs do in comparison to PWIs. Because when you compare apples to apples and not apples to cucumber, we are either equal or better. That is all.
And I just want to add to this, and I'm glad you brought that up. The numbers that you just put forth is in spite of the fact that we lack the wealth that these other people have.
Yep.
Again, I've said on here before, Instagram is not a real place. Quit going on Instagram and seeing these folks capping in their designer clothes and these vacations that they're taking and think that we got it like that. The racial wealth gap is real. Yep. So the fact that we're still leading in attendance when we lack discretionary spending money, okay? Spending money on a football game does not matter in the grand scheme of life. Paying your rent, your mortgage, okay? Paying your car note, making sure everything is right at your house. At the end of the day, that's what really matters. But black people are so passionate if they have a tie to an HBCU, okay? They're so passionate about their school that even though, yeah, you're a college grad from HBCU, but maybe you might be first generation. Now, OG say he third generation. But second. But maybe you're a first generation college grad. And y'all know what comes with that. When you are the person in your family that done made it, you taking care of yourself and your little family. When Ray needs some money, he coming to you, okay? When Shaniqua needs some money to pay her prom dues, she coming to you. You got all that kind of stuff going on, but then you still find a way to help your school. You still find a way to contribute to stuff like JSU by 40. You still find a way to get you some season tickets or come to the game and stuff like that. You still find a way to buy the gear and a bigger way than comparable sized schools. Okay.
And you know, when you say that, I know we keep saying we're gonna finish, but you brought up another point. Here's one of the mistakes that we make. And this is, I have to say, we make this mistake. We are really bad at cutting off our nose to spite our face. What HBCU graduates and HBCU supporters have to realize, paying our alumni dues and buying season tickets to athletic events, that is a social political act to ensure the economic sovereignty of your school. Let me say it again. Paying your alumni dues and buying season tickets to athletic events is a social political act to the economic sovereignty of your school. If we want our schools to come from under the thumb of racist, majority white college boards that make decisions to hurt us rather than help us, we have to generate our own funds. Let me put it to you this way. And again, I'm not a religious person, but this is the way I think most of your people are going to understand it.
Okay.
Brother, first, the main person complaining about paying their tithes at church is the first person complaining when the air conditioners don't work in the summertime. The main person complaining about paying their tithes at church is the first person who complained when the heat don't work in the winter. Well, the reason the air conditioner don't work, the reason the pews are broke, the reason why you couldn't have that food for that special program because you didn't pay your tithes. Why? Because black people need to understand we have to fund, we have to finance our own revolution. You can't beg white people to finance your revolution. You can't tell white people first. If I want you to say first, you are an evil, no good dog. Let me get $5. How are they gonna work out for me? Am I getting that $5? So we can't on the one hand tell white folks how racist they are, how evil they are, and ask them for $5. And so what we'll do is, if the football team struggles, if the basketball team struggles, I ain't getting season tickets. Well, that's not gonna help them get better. In fact, when you decide not to get season tickets, you are deciding you don't want the team to get better. The worst thing you can do for college athletics, and I'm talking to all HBCU people. And here's the thing, because the one thing that with which we struggle is that a lot of our folk, despite we just talked about all the great attendance we have, right? We can do better. That's what's scary first. We are killing the white FCS schools, and we only doing about 20-30% of what we can do. For instance, you have a lot of HBCU grads who don't live in the area. So they say, well, why should I buy season tickets if I can't make it to every game? Again, because the season tickets is you funding the economic revolution of your school, the economic liberation of your school. So every time you buy season tickets, it's about liberating your school from racist white college boards. And by the way, when you buy those tickets, you know what you can do? You can donate them for somebody else. Because I'm going to tell you about it. You know why Jackson State has always traditionally had big crowds? Because you had black children growing up in the Jackson metro area. We don't have NFL sports. So the Jackson State football game on with what's that king? Mr. Morgan? What did Mr. Morgan say on your show first? He said it was really Jackson State. He said the only reason he went to Syracuse was because they came in at the last second. But it was really, you had a king. Think about this. Syracuse or Jackson State. Why? Because that young brother grew up in the Jackson metro area, seeing it be packed out.
Yeah. Before
prime.
Yeah.
So what we have to understand is, if you are a Jackson State graduate and you living in DC or LA or Detroit, you can still buy your season tickets and send your tickets back here to Jackson to Man them. Mm-hmm. And let Man and Ray them find some young kids, some young children in the Jackson metro area. But we got to understand that we have to fund our economic liberation, because if black folks don't fund our economic liberation, we're going to continue to live on, we're going to continue to be sharecroppers on somebody else's plantation. That's it.
And what you said just made me think about something I've been thinking about. So I want to amend something I said. In the grand scheme of life, going to a football game should not be one's priority. It shouldn't. But the way this country is, and this is wrong, sports teams are the number one advertisement for an institution.
Yep.
Okay. Liegh McInnis has been a stellar professor at Jackson State University. From what I've heard from real ones who, if I post him, y'all come under the stuff on my social media and say, oh, I loved him and woo woo and all that kind of stuff. Y'all got to help me get him on Twitter. Y'all got to help me get the OG. The OG will set it off on there. Okay, y'all got to help me with that. Okay, but I didn't know the OG, even though he's friends with my sister. Okay.
Shout out to Dr. Tiffany Wells Harmon. Shout out to her.
Shout out to my sister. Shout out.
Another purple soldier in the purple army.
That's right. That's right. Oh, my sister Tracy Wells home, Dr. Tracy Wells home. She loves Prince now. That look, my OG loves Prince. Y'all know he's a Prince scholar, okay? My sister right there with him. All right, but she had never introduced me to OG. I learned of OG through a sports documentary. The sports documentary with Prime, and he was sitting down with the young blood football player. What was the young king name? OG? Owens, okay. And the young king Owens was a little eccentric. I'm like, okay, this big dude. But then I would listen to the game that OG was giving, and I'm like, man, woo! I was blown away. But y'all see what I'm talking about? Like, this man existed on that campus, but I didn't know about him until sports brought it to the forefront, because sports, everywhere Jack State go, that block is right there. They see it. Okay? That's advertising for the institution. Again, this ain't right. When you picking a school, you should be picking a school for the academics. Does it have your major? Class size? Is it gonna nurture you? Like you said, I think that's part of what.
Look here. I'm gonna tell you where you're going. And again, because I love we simply doing the facts. We simply doing the empirical. So I'm asking you two questions. Number one, do you know what the largest HBCU is? Do you know the HBCU with the largest attendance?
Somebody in terms of the enrollment?
In terms of enrollment.
Is it FAM?
Nope.
Who is it?
North Carolina A&T.
Okay.
Would you like to know how they became the largest HBCU?
How's that?
3 straight Celebration Bowl trips.
Bam.
They were not number one.
That's my point.
And they said that. They said that when they started going to the Celebration Bowl, their applications tripled.
It shouldn't be like that, y'all, but I understand. I knew it from my own life when I was a little boy. The Fab Five was dope. Chris Webber, Jalen Rhodes, Warren Howard, all them boys, okay? And had my little tail wanting to go to Michigan. Okay, not knowing anything, not knowing what I want to do with life and everything like that. Michigan, way up there in that cold. I'm a mama's boy. I don't want to leave my mama, but because I like them, it had me want to go to Michigan. Okay. One of my youngins, Thomas Snyder, he goes by Finesse the Producer. Shout out to my young king. That boy went to the University of Alabama simply because he loved Alabama football. I taught that boy when he was in high school. I used to call him Roll Tide. That's how much he went over there strictly for the football team. I'm telling y'all, he ain't play a lick of football though. He went over there because of that. When Prime was at Jack State, the energy behind it, a lot of folks were acting like they wanted to enroll in the school, not to play for the team, just to be a part of the vibe. You can go look up several articles online right now and see that he got Colorado's enrollment up. Again, that's football. They ain't finna play football. They want to be a part of the vibe. So, I want to amend my statement. In the grand scheme of life, football tickets should not matter more than your rent, your mortgage, and all that kind of stuff. True, it still should. But if you want to promote your school, helping your school's athletic team might be the best way to get things up. As OG is saying, like if you're trying to drive revenue and all that kind of stuff.
Let me get another example. Because I've known a lot of folk, and I've had this discussion. Because there are a lot of people who are just not sports people, right? And me, I taught on a university level for 25 years. So I would deal with other professors, not a lot, but I would deal with other professors. They just didn't understand it. So I would deal with professors who would say, why is all that attention played to sports, but not to the other academics? Two answers to that. Number one, I hate to put it this way, but 50,000 people not coming to see you mix them chemicals in the chemistry lab. Ain't nobody showing up. But a great football program can pay for a new lab.
Yes.
A great football program can pay for new dorms.
True that.
A great football program can pay for endowed chairs and endowed positions.
True that.
So the reason, like you said, it promotes the school, but not only does it promote the school, the funds generated, like you said, it shouldn't be. But college sports is a $1 billion industry. I wish it, I'm one of the people who say, I wish I'm still a person who think that the name on the front of a college jersey is more important than the name on the back.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm very utilitarian. I'm very pragmatic. And the bottom line is, if you have a great sports program, that great sports program will pay for scholarships. It will pay for new buildings. It'll help pay for. And here, remember we talked about that R2, R1?
Mm-hmm.
The reason only 11 HBCUs are able to become R2s is not because we don't have the professors and the students. It's because we don't have the money for them to do the research they need to do. But if you have a successful football program or a successful basketball program or successful baseball program, those programs generate money so that now when your chemistry or your engineering or your literary or your creative writing or your social work or your education majors want to do research, you now have the coffers, you have the money, you have the funding. So again, buying season tickets drives the revenue not only of the sports program, it drives the revenue. And again, North Carolina A&T is one of the best examples of how you go from the second or third largest HBCU to the first simply because you are supporting your athletic program. Again, I'm not saying that sports is extracurricular. I'm still one of those people who use the term extracurricular. That you should be an athlete after. That's what it means, extra. After you do your academics, you should be. But 50,000 people not coming to see you conjugate no verbs.
That's real.
That's it.
That's real. And that's on every level. When I was a high school teacher and coach, I was the best thing smoking as a teacher. Nobody knew who I was until I took on the head coaching role. Because as entertaining as I was, I'm an entertaining teacher. Okay. I have interactive lecture. You gonna like being in my class. Okay. But you're not gonna like me talking about Teddy Roosevelt as much as you like to see them boys shooting at them threes and dunking. You wasn't gonna like that. And I understand that, and I'm real enough to know that. So I would say real ones from HBCUs, keep doing your thing, man. Keep doing y'all thing. Y'all know we've been leading in attendance, especially Jackson State University. We've been leading in attendance. As OG said, we can do better, particularly not just buying single game tickets, getting them season tickets. You know what I'm talking about? Again, take care of your business first. The racial wealth gap is real. I know you got real stuff going on. Take care of your business first, okay? But if you're trying to give back to your institution, getting them season tickets is one of the best way to do it.
Let me say one more thing. And this is an add-on to everything I just said. May not mean anything to anybody else. And I can only speak to Black college graduates. I mean, if you're not a Black college graduate, you're a Black college support, I guess this will. Black college graduates, please get offline hoping for another Black school to lose. There's one thing about rivalry. But when Black people start taking joy in the demise or the fall of other Black things, I saw a guy. You know what? I'm gonna go. There was a guy online. He go by the name of Miak Mike. This dude online actually said when Jackson State was getting ready to play Campbell, he said if Jackson State lose to Campbell, it'll be better than having sex. And I looked at that and I said, "Oh my goodness!"
Had him no sex.
I said, "Really?" I said, "What kind of sex is he having?" Because what Ludacris said, if those who say sex ain't all that, they ain't doing it right. I mean, what kind of is and I hate because and the only reason I want to mention that is because I don't want people to think I'm making this stuff up. We have to understand that there's rivalry and then there's Black self-hatred. And you have to ask yourself, are you engaged in rivalry? Are you engaged in Black self-hatred? But here's the worst thing. A lot of them justify that by saying, well, that's what white schools do. I did not know that our liberation movement was so we could be as evil as white people. Why are we justifying our maliciousness by saying that's what white? In fact, our liberation struggle has not been as evil as white folk. Our liberation struggle was about ending the evil. And the first way of ending the evil of white supremacy is for black people to stop being evil to other black people. It is okay to root for your team. It is okay to talk noise. But if your one goal in life is to make sure that another black school loses, you are suffering from black self-hatred. And you need, because you have to understand that there are black children looking at that. There are black children trying to make decisions about where they're going to attend school. And if these black children see other black people wishing on the downfall of other black institutions, they have nothing to all that statistical data that Brother First and I just quoted. They don't see that. What they see online is black people being evil to black people. And if you are sitting, I'll tell you something I've never done, Brother First. It's not really the same, but I'm tell you what I've never done. Do you know I've never in my life, as a player and as a fan, never at the end of the season hope for a team to lose so that my team could get in the playoffs? To me, that's lame. If you are sitting around waiting for a team to lose so you can get into the playoff, you are lame. I'm going to say it. I know this going to make, and don't come at Brother First, come at me. He didn't say that. I was worried about me and my team. I was worried about what we were going to do. So if you're sitting around here as a black college graduate, hoping for another black school to lose, you are not only lame, you are the best example of black self-hatred.
Well, OG, I appreciate you for coming on, and Real Ones. Y'all make sure y'all are pushing back on these white supremacist notions out here. You feel me? We got to do good with that as OGs and double OG, triple OG, no matter what age you are, because as my OG said, these kids are watching this stuff. And I should not ever have a young person tell me that something is poorly run because niggas are running it. And I use that word right then because that's exactly what the young person said to me. The young person told me that the county in which he lives is poor because niggas run it. And I had to correct that. Too few of us are doing the work to correct those things. Because if you don't, that keep trickling on down, and then how in the hell we gonna win when we feel inferior, when we feel like we can't even win? Put it on something.
Please subscribe to my daddy's YouTube channel, because the more subscribers he gets, the more attractive he looks to sponsors. The more attractive he looks to sponsors, the more money he can make. And the more money he can make, the more money he can spend on me.